quick before the video begin, I will host a Q&A soon. If you want to ask me something, then comment your question with the capital Q&A in front. Thank you. Hello boys and girls, I'm TheFlyingTeaCup, and I have a question for you. What can possibly be up with the boost in Titanfall 2? Well, for starters, why does the amped weapon boost allow you to shoot bullets and make more damage just by pressing a button? Or how does the map hack allow you to see hostiles through walls? And finally, how does the phase rewind work? Well, let's break down the boost and try to understand how it works. So there's an important component on the boost that we have to keep in mind, and that is the activation module on the left of the gadget. The fact is that this button isn't actually a button. It looks like multiple battery ports of some sort. Next to the output on the front, there's a battery-shaped rectangle with a lightning icon inside. It most likely shows that the output is triggered by electricity. On the bottom of the device there's a code which says BGSN 261397569, which is most likely some sort of ID of the device. I'll get to why this is important later. On the top of the device there are multiple lights in which 3 of them are lit while the last one is turned off. This might be the level of energy that the device possesses. Just like a phone, the boosts are required to be charged at some point to be useful, though there are some differences when it comes to the battery backup and Holopilot Nova. The Holopilot Nova's 3 lights shine brighter than the other boosts, which seems strange. For the battery backup, the second layer is bright and has a shiny silver look, while the other has a standard grey metallic texture. Now going to the backside, all boosts are identical. They have a circle in the middle with 4 dots. The rest of the backside looks like some sort of circuit board with a manufacturer stamp which says RSPN 0609216 and what looks like an outscratched barcode. The RSPN is an obvious acronym for Respawn, which is a little Easter egg by the developers themselves. The number hints to the 9th of June 2016. This is a strange date because it doesn't hint to the reveal of Titanfall 2 nor the teaser of the game. Now, before I start explaining how the boosts work, keep in mind that this is just how they would work lore-wise and not how they work gameplay-wise. So onto how they work. Let's start with the first boost you'll unlock and then carry on from there. Amped weapons are quite interesting. It might sound easy to explain how they work gameplay-wise, but impossible to explain how they work lore-wise. Well, that's until you dig a little deeper into how the weapons work in Titanfall. In the book The Art of Titanfall, there's a chapter in which Respawn expresses how the ammunition works. The interesting thing about this is that instead of having a bullet cartridge that contains gunpowder that sends the bullet forward when the hammer hits it from behind, it uses electricity. Inside the weapons there's a component that is built up by an electronic bolt carrier group that is connected with an electronic firing pin with a heatsink in between. Every time you pull the trigger, the firing component extends and the electronic firing pin touches the backside of the bullet cartridge, which results in the bullet leaving the gun at a high velocity. So now, what does the boost do? Well, when the pilot touches the output on the device, it overcharges the firing pin and sends out the bullet at a high velocity. It can do this for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds it will run out of energy completely. It will then recharge when you get the boost once more during the match. It's even proven when you use it. If you look closely at the bullets when your weapon is amped, you can see a small trace of blue and white sparkles following the bullets. But how does the boost device know what weapon to overcharge? Well, based on the campaign, we know that the helmet's OS can detect what weapon the pilot is carrying. When the pilot touches the device's output, the suit sends a signal to the helmet, which then sends a signal to the weapon's electricity output, which is connected with the firing pin, and thereafter overcharges itself and makes it possible to fire bullets at a more lethal velocity. Ticks and hardcover are similar when it comes to how they're deployed. When you activate them, you can hear the pilot pulling some kind of pin like when you activate a grenade. But why do you need a boost device to deploy them if you deploy them by just pulling out a pin? Well, when it comes down to the ticks, it's fairly obvious. When they are deployed, they fold out their legs and starts running around searching for hostiles. If it doesn't find any enemies to kill after 16 seconds, it self-detonates. It can also explode if the enemy fires at them directly. Now pretend you accidentally touched the pin and pulled it out by mistake. It will deploy the tick while it's still stuck in your belt. You are a ticking time bomb and an easy kill for the other team. The boost is just an extra safety catch so it doesn't deploy by mistake. The reason why the hardcover uses the same mechanics as the ticks is because they are a one-time use device. When deployed, it will deploy a particle shield that will stay up until the presumed battery runs out and self-detonates to avoid being picked up again and used by a hostile or a friendly pilot in case it doesn't work as intended. The sentry guns work similar to the hardcover. Pilots most likely carry a small contraption on their back before they're deployed on the map. The boost simply activates them and allows them to unfold and shoot when the pilots deploy them. The sentries are active for 1 minute each and self-detonates when the time limit has been reached. The reason why it does this is the same as the hardcover, but also for gameplay balance. Battery backup works similarly in the way that the pilot jumps into the battle with them already equipped and that the battery is activated when the pilot uses the boost. The reason why the boost is required is that it's pointless for hostiles to take an inactive battery. This means that even if the pilot dies, it doesn't help the hostiles by giving them a battery. Though if the boost is active and the pilot dies, the battery will still be active and work as a normal battery for anyone. When a map hack is used, it sends out a pulse that detects hostile electronics. The ability itself is quite similar to the pulse blade, but works different lore-wise. During a match, pilots aren't the only units on the battlefield. There are large carriers in the orbit that supports the pilot by dropping titans and keeping a bird eye over the battle. When the pilot activates the map hack, multiple pulses are sent out from a ship that detects hostile electronics like pilots, titans, sentry guns and infantry units such as specters and grunts. This is transmitted to the pilots and titans' HUDs, which helps them plan and attack their enemies. Radar jammer's function should be quite easy to understand. When a pilot uses the boost, it sends out signals that are stronger than the signals transmitted to the pilots and titans on the battlefield on the same frequency. This creates a noise that disrupts the communication between the satellite and the pilot's navigation system for a short while. Similar things has been used in Titanfall 2's campaign. In the beginning, the MCS James McAllen gets jammed quite hard. The radar jammer is of course not as strong as the jammer that causes the carrier to crash in the campaign, but is a good example of how powerful a radar jammer can be. The smart pistol is quite interesting in the sense that it auto-aims for you and guides the bullet towards your enemies. When the pilot activates the boost, it in itself activates the smart pistol's function and bullets. To explain how it works, we can actually turn to a real-life weapon, or rather a form of ammunition called Exacto ammunition. Exacto is an acronym for Extreme Accuracy Tasked Ordnance, which could give you a hint on what it does. Of course, there are some differences between the smart pistol and the Exacto sniper rifle. For starters, the real-life gun that shoots the guided bullets is a sniper rifle with a special designed scope and uses special designed 50 caliber BMG bullets. When fired, the bullet can be used as normal and doesn't have to be guided, though a laser can be used to change the direction of the projectile's current path. There are some test footages on YouTube if you're interested to see some examples. Now, onto the fictional smart pistol. It clearly uses the same or similar technologies that can modify the original path of the bullets. If we look at the design of the actual smart pistol, we can see that it has a laser sight and a camera. That clearly means that the pistol can detect where the hostiles currently are. This information is then transferred to the pilot's interface and lets the pilot know when it has calculated the possible position of the enemy. This explains why it can't detect pilots who use his cloak. The laser goes right through them and tricks it into thinking that there's nothing there. The reason why the pilots are only given 2 clips of ammunition is probably because of the manufacturing of these bullets are extremely expensive and the factions aren't willing to give such expensive luxury to random mercenaries. Another example is a SEER kit, which is given to SRS pilots when they're in trouble under extreme circumstances. SEER is an acronym for Survival, Evasion, Resistance and Escape, which means that the smart pistol is a gun that should be used in tough situations and should be used carefully. Phase rewind is quite tricky to explain. To do that we have to dig into how phase shift and phase dash works, and honestly I'm not educated in particle physics, so I will have to wait for a while. But why does it work for both humans and simulacrums? Isn't this something that should be only accessible for the machines? Well, yes and no. Humans have used phase shift multiple times, such as when they embark an evac ship at the end of the match and when they use the pilot kit phase embark. Well, as far as we can see, the use of phase shift is used on very few occasions for humans. To use it deliberately, as when you use phase embark, you actually have to equip a specific pilot kit before dropping into the battle, which means that it's most likely a part of your pilot armor. This means when you equip the boost, you might already have a device on your suit that tracks your location 4 seconds back, and when you use the boost, the device takes control of your body and sends you back to the tracked location. This device is probably similar to what the phase shift pilot has in its hand and the phase dash component in the Ronin chassis that triggers the phase shift effect. Holopilot Nova works in a similar way that it uses the same device that makes it possible for holopilots to make holographic copies of them. The dice roll is probably not used in real life scenarios and is only used in simulations to train pilots to use different equipments and prepare them for the worst in case the weapon of choice is unavailable. Phew, that was a lot of information at the same time. Well, I think that explains the boosts and their functions. Could the boosts work in a different way? If you have a theory yourself, then comment down in the description and tell me. And don't forget to write any questions for the Q&A. Thanks for watching and take care.